How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk, guys. Today I want to revisit Khimberly Zavaleta Chaquipa. I want to talk about her story. Again, I covered it a couple of days ago. It's a young girl whose life was taken by bullying. Happened in a school out in Los Angeles. And I am blessed today to have her uncle. We're going to have her uncle on. We are going to tell her story. Let us introduce you to who Kimberly was. I think that's extremely important. So we're going to talk about her, what she was interested in, what she may have grown up to be. We want to do a video that honors her, but then we also want to talk about some of the concerns we have related to this case, related to bullying. Did the school do enough? What about her medical care? Was there a concern there? And what are we doing now? And her uncle, you're going to meet him, Guy David Gazit, Gazit. He is not only become a great voice for the family during this very tough time, he is leading a movement that I feel could cause a lot of schools to relook at how they handle bullying. And this way, I believe through his efforts, Kimberly has a legacy. That's the key. That's why we have this channel, to give voice to the voiceless. And that's exactly what her uncle is doing. And again, this is our effort to bring about awareness to this case. I think it deserves more attention. So if you guys like what we cover, please share it out. Let me just show you a quick news clip before I bring in her uncle. Again, guys, I did do this. I think I've done 2 videos on this already. So please check out those other videos first before we do this one, because we're going to jump right in. But let me just give you a quick little backdrop here. So let me play this real quick.
The mother of a 12-year-old girl who died several days after an altercation at a school in Reseda is now speaking out.
Kimberly Zavaleta's family says she was hit in the head with a water bottle and then later suffered a brain injury.
Llevamos de emergencia al hospital, donde ella llega sin signos vitales al hospital. Pues me asusté mucho, lloré mucho. Tenía esa esperanza de que ella se iba a levantar de donde estaba.
In their home, you see it there, the family set up an altar for Kimberly with flowers and photos. She died at a hospital on Wednesday. A homicide investigation is now underway.
Fue muy doloroso para mí dejarla a mi hija en un hospital con una esperanza de llegar a la casa y traérmela. Siempre me decía, no te voy a dejar nunca. Pues les digo, cuando estaba ahí me fallaste, dijiste que no me ibas a dejar.
LAUSD released a statement saying, quote, "The district takes the safety and well-being of our students very seriously. We are currently cooperating with law enforcement in connection with this incident."
And that coverage was rather quick. That's why we're going to do a little bit more in detail. We don't have a time frame here, so we are going to give whatever time is needed to her uncle. And before I have him come on, I just want to let everybody know that I'm honored that he chose my platform. He saw the video we did, made a comment, and it humbles me to know that people trust in not just the content we produce, but the community here. And guys, whatever you could do, if it's awareness, sharing it, I definitely think we have a story worth telling and a story that we all can make a difference in. So let me bring in Guy. Hey, Guy, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Anthony. First of all, thank you very much. I got your coverage on the topic from a friend who saw it. My friend lives in Georgia, and she sent it to me, and I was touched by the fact that you took the time to talk about Kimberly's case, and I kind of saw a brilliant analysis of the situation, even if you didn't have all the details and you were based off what you saw in the news. You did a great job, and I think more and more people, especially from my generation, and I think you and I are probably very close in age, seem to agree that we live in a time where the culture needs to be repaired, the medical system needs to be repaired, the educational system needs to be repaired. And you mentioned that I'm spearheading a movement. I don't see myself as spearheading a movement. I'm definitely backed by a lot of people with a lot of goodwill, and people who, even if they don't have children, this story of Kimberly touched them in the heart so much that our family is being hugged and loved and supported, and we're overwhelmed with that. But this time calls for a movement, and we need to repair all the broken systems that have been degraded, and I can't put it in other words, but we've lost our way as a society. Even if as individuals we might have the way, every mechanism wants to protect itself before it wants to protect children or patients or the citizen. And it's high time to uproot whatever this malculture is, and reinstate guardrails to protect our kids. Whether it's at school, a school should not be a battle zone. We shouldn't be feeling like we're sending a kid out there and then never knowing if they're going to come back alive. And definitely when you give a child who suffered any type of condition with a medical professional, we want that medical professional to do whatever is in their power to heal our child. And it's adults as well. Malpractice or medical neglect is too prevalent in the 21st century, when we have artificial intelligence and technology is affordable and accessible, and some doctors will choose not to use it.
You know, you said so many powerful things. When you said mechanisms out there just to protect themselves, I resonate with that so much, because in the end, when we all should be getting together to do what's right, we wind up spending most of our energy pointing the finger. And then you need someone like yourself to step in the middle and say, guys, this is not doing any justice for Kimberly. There's nothing here that's helping carry her voice. Instead of us figuring out what happened so we can move forward and make serious change, we're more worried about the liability. And unfortunately, instead of us working together, we get separated during incidences that really require us to be working together. We get so concerned about our own preservation. And I like what you said, again, mechanisms that all we care about is I didn't do it.
And it's not, and this is also part of the culture, that I didn't do it, or sweeping things under the rug. Obviously, a mechanism or an establishment or an institution like a hospital, if they have one doctor that makes a mistake, the hospital will see that as a blemish on their reputation. Even if that doctor, he does not represent all of the other 99% of the medical professionals that work in that hospital, but they treat it as if, okay, he made a mistake, but we can't talk about that, so we're going to do whatever we can to exonerate him and put the blame somewhere else. And that is, I can see why certain people in certain, I'll call them cogs in the machine, would see that as beneficial for the machine. But and probably they even think, oh, well, it doesn't harm anybody when we bend the truth a little bit to protect this person, rather than be transparent, because this is what we lack: transparency. Everything, and it goes all the way from, it doesn't matter if it's your banker or your congressman. We need transparency everywhere. And unfortunately, in the absence of transparency, things that shouldn't be happening are happening. Now, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not saying this thing is bad or that thing is bad, but everything needs to be put back in a place. I'll call it a holistic place. And the attitude should be, we are here to keep our children safe. That's number one priority. And then to keep regular people, not just children, but students, patients, clients. We need to keep them safe, and whatever else is there, I guess it boils down to profit, because everything is a business. Even the educational system, which is supposed to be a governmental agency, whether it's federal or state, it's still a business. And we see that in the health industry, and we see that in even in policing, unfortunately. So we need transparency, we need accountability, we need people to say, I made the mistake, I take the responsibility. Yes, they might pay a personal price for that, but
And you know what?
it will make sure that nobody else goes through the rigmarole of losing a child or losing a life where there was no need for that to happen.
True change obviously comes from accountability. I mean, you can't shift blame and then expect true change to occur. There has to be someone that says the buck stops here, because this is where we have failed. This is where we need to do better. And it's not about, pointing it at other people, but rather someone at one point has to absorb it. And I just want to show you. So guys, this is Kimberly. And then sadly, and I want to go, if you don't mind, I want to talk a little bit about Kimberly. So I have here 12-year-old Kimberly Zavaleta Chiquipa was a sixth grader at Reseda Charter High School, 6 to 12 campus in Los Angeles. She lived in Sherman Oaks with their Peruvian immigrant family and was the youngest child, the baby of the house. Her family describes her as a happy, gentle kid who loved playing violin and volleyball, taking walks with the families, 2 dogs, and spending time with her siblings. She had started learning French on her phone and talked about becoming a doctor one day. She wasn't someone who went looking for trouble. She was someone who brightened the space she was in. Now, Guy, before we get into the details of the school and the hospital, how would you want people to remember who Kimberly was as a person and also as your niece?
Right. So, first of all, let me explain our family situation. So, my wife is part of the Chiquipa family, which is they're a tribe. My wife is one of 10 children. Most of her siblings live in Peru. One sister and one brother live here, and they emigrated within about the last 5 years. And for the first year, when my sister-in-law and her husband and their 5 kids came here, they basically stayed with us. So we helped them while they sorted out all their, all the legal stuff, the immigration stuff, the work permits, found a job, found a housing, and then they moved and they lived down the street from us. So we were constantly together. And the kids lived with us for a year, which means they were part of our family. And I definitely I have a great relationship with all of my nieces, whether it's from my side of my family or my wife's side of the family. Specifically, I feel like with Kimberly, I was her confidant. She would tell me things she didn't feel comfortable talking to with her parents. She's the one that asked me if we can study French together, and I was teaching her French on Duolingo. She was a very bright child. She came here knowing 0 English, and within the first year here, she started conversing, and by the time she passed away, she commanded English more than like a second language. She was perfect in English. She was smart in a lot of things. She was really good in math. She was good in sciences. She expressed her wishes to be a doctor. She took the violin at school. It may have not stuck as much because it probably wasn't as cool, but for the time she did it, she enjoyed it. And she was just a great niece. She was always happy. She was very inquisitive. She wasn't afraid to ask questions and learn. And she was also very spriteful. She had this zest of life. She was a little mischievous, but not bad mischievous. Just do funny things, especially with her siblings and with her uncles and aunts, and play pranks on one another. She was fun to have around. And when I went to the rally at the school, the students at the school were holding both the vigil in her memory and the rally for justice for Kimberly, and it was heartwarming and gut wrenching at the same time. And a lot of the kids came to me and to Kimberly's parents and her siblings, and they said how much they loved Kimberly because she was just such a sweet kid. And they all said she did not deserve.
Correct. You also have her as a protector too, correct?
Yeah. So when her older sister Sharon, who's 15 years old, and her niece from her oldest sister Sheena, who's 13 years old, they were walking out. They all go to the same school, and this is a magnet school. So this is not your average public school. This is a school where kids are supposed to be smarter and more into studying. They were getting out of their classes and ready to get home. Both her older sister and her 1 year older niece were bullied, and she steps up. This 12 years old steps up and demands in a very polite way, "Stop hitting my sister, stop hitting my niece." And we know that from other kids telling us what happened. So she didn't come with her fists up. She came asking to stop having her sister and her niece bullied, and then the heat turns to her, which is again, I don't really understand bullying because I never bullied anybody. I may have been bullied as a young kid, but bullying then looked a little different than it does look today. From what I know, none of the girls have been bullied on a regular basis. So whoever these bullies are, they were not looking for a face or a name. They were just lashing out at the easy prey. And this is a cultural problem. And I've seen this cultural problem both from the time that I worked as a teacher, and I've been a teacher for many years in my life. And I'm not going to name which different school districts I've been working for, and different states, different countries. But there's always this assertion that a kid needs to be honored and respected, and they don't understand what honor and respect is. Honor is something that you are given, you don't demand it, and respect is something that needs to be earned. You need to work to get respect, and you can't use your fists to get respect. And this is something that, unfortunately, a lot of these kids learn from their parents. They learn it from certain subcultures that they would promote violence as a way of gaining respect rather than hard work or academic achievements. And I've seen that with kids that were my students, and the way they would either talk to their peers, or talk to me, or talk to teachers, to staff, to even the principal. They live in this weird cultural, inverted and perverse culture where power means honor and respect, violence means honor and respect, and then academic achievement is frowned upon and looked like the loser or the nerd or the geek. This has been around probably for a long time, and I don't know what the root of it is, but from where I'm coming from, I've only seen it where it comes from the home. So it's almost like it's a generational thing. And you notice that there are certain communities that push their kids towards academic achievements, and there are certain communities that regard academic achievements as not a good thing. I don't know why. I cannot explain it. I've seen, and this is the odd thing. You would normally think that it's the low social economical classes, I'll use the word classes, that are like that, but that is not entirely true. I've seen kids from broken homes who do exceptionally well in academics and in life, and I've seen kids who come from very affluent homes who fall down into that culture, that bullying culture, and I'll use the word gangsta culture.
I could add something to that in my world too, because you're spot on. So I worked in corrections for 23 years. I started at a female facility. I interacted with the females a lot, and I've chatted with them. Kind of get to understand how some of them, believe it or not, on the outside, they want to be accepted. They look for approval, and they'll take it any way they can get. And then when they get behind the wall, some of them do find that maybe that pattern of lifestyle was wrong, because the people that they look for approval from, they're not with them when they're going through this struggle. So they start to develop some level of independence, what breaks them away from the choices that they made in the past, but also a better understanding of, these choices weren't good for me. And then they start to get, when they start doing good, they start getting a different type of recognition.
Right.
And to them, it's like, at the end of the day, they, for them, graduating and getting a degree meant nothing to some of their families. What was like, are you going to steal a car, or are you going to go to jail? That's where the respect is. And the whole time they were seeking approval, but it led to a life that wouldn't be on their terms. And then finally, when they, as I said, they get arrested and they start to look at things differently, they start to see the errors of their ways. But sadly, and what I find is there's three levels of engagement when it comes to this. One is preventive, where you got kids that could be in tough neighborhoods or whatever the case may be, and you try to create an environment where you can influence them and through connection, through love, so they can value your influence over someone who will take them down a negative path, the counter influence to that. And that would be more the preventive side. At the prison side, most of the thing, we will get a lot of those that require intervention. They're already in, they're kind of on the fence. And then it's a matter of getting to them before they start believing in that lifestyle and justifying those beliefs. And then the final step, unfortunately, at the prison side is the suppression side, where at this point, it's just too late. Their lifestyle is what they believe. And at this point, they're a risk to others. I don't have time to try to get them to change. All I can do now is do my best to protect those that are around them. And I think that's the concern we have with even with the bullying at the school. It's like I find that sometimes we do more, and this is tough for me to say, and I think some people may relate to this, but we may do more for people that break rules than we do for the people who are harmed by the rules that were broken. And if you don't mind, I would like to read a little breakdown of what happened to your niece. And I do have a video that you sent me that I was going to play it, and then if you could kind of talk us through it. It's a little confusing for me to see it.
Okay.
But
it's a little confusing in general because it's very small, and I guess it was taken by students at the school.
It looks like it's a phone, but it's definitely video that has not been seen, or at least that I know of. Could have been shared on someone's social media, but it's a video that was sent to you, right, Guy? It was a
yes. A lot of the kids at the school have circulated that video, and it got to some of the parents, and it got to us as well.
All right, so I'm going to read the incident real quick, and then I have a question, and then I'll like to show the video. All right, so on February 17, 2026, at dismissal time, things escalated. It's kind of outside, but they still consider that a hallway. But escalated in one of the hallways at Reseda Charter. Kimberly's 15-year-old sister was confronted and surrounded by a group of students, several girls and at least one boy. What began as verbal conflict turned into a physical attack on her sister, her older sister, 15-year-old. In the middle of the chaos, Kimberly stepped in. She tried to pull her sister away from the group. And according to her mother's account, she even told the boy involved, let's go to the principal's office and talk about it, trying to move the conflict into an adult supervised space, also providing some level of peace.
Right.
At some point during that confrontation, another 12-year-old allegedly threw a metal water bottle that struck the back of Kimberly's head. Students recorded parts of the fight on their phones. On the phones, the videos don't clearly show the exact moment of impact, but they do show a violent altercation happening in the school hallway at a time when staff should have been present. So the question I have for you here is, from your family's perspective, what do you understand happened in that hallway that day, and how did you first find out that both girls had been attacked and that Kimberly had been hit in the head with a water bottle?
So I only got that story way later. I was not even aware that that incident happened until way later. So the way I understood it, and it might just be my understanding, because of sometimes when my in-laws speak Spanish and they speak fast, it really goes over my head, because my Spanish is I want to say intermediate. It's a little over basic, but it's not. I can't understand when people speak too fast.
Are you French? Your background's French?
No. My background is Israeli, so my first language is Hebrew, and then English is my second language, and then I want to say Spanish is my second and a half language. I know a little bit of French. I know a little bit of German. I studied Arabic. Out of interest, I took Korean on Duolingo. I'm really bad at it. I can only say very basic, things. But Spanish was a little bit easier for me to grasp, because the Spanish grammar is very similar to the Hebrew grammar. It's different than the English grammar, and it's also gender specific. So is Hebrew. I took Spanish when I was dating my wife, and my wife's a perfect English speaker, and she's been here for over 30 years, so she kind of forgot a lot of her Spanish in the meantime. But to converse with my in-laws, I wanted to know Spanish just so I can know when they're talking behind my back, but also to actually have a decent conversations with them. And the kids definitely got English really fast, so that made my life easier. But when I speak to my sister-in-law or brother-in-law or any of the older kids, then I need to have, my ears are always perked, so I try to get everything the way they say it. And the way I understood the story was pretty much the way you depicted it, with the one detail that I was not sure of, whether the bottle was launched at Kimberly's head or swung at Kimberly's head. And unfortunately, we don't see that in the video. Now, one of the kids that was spearheading the rally at the school, she said something that was a little it struck a nerve with me. She said, why are the school cameras on when kids are vaping, but they're off when kids are fighting? Why would they not show us these videos? Because as we were told by the kids at the school, the kids who bullied Kimberly and her siblings came back to school the next day. There was no disciplinary action against them, no detention, no I'm at a loss for words, but
no discipline,
no expulsion. They were not expelled. They were not in detention. There was no disciplinary action against them. They just came back to school as if nothing happened. And that just proves to you, since these kids have been bullying other kids in the school for a long time, and they've been what you call a known offender, a repeat offender, this is rewarding to the offender. This is not deterring the offender.
That's a great point that you mentioned, Guy, because So one of the things I mentioned in shows I've done in the past is that patterns, and if patterns are avoided, then obviously that's where negligence comes in. We've covered in a lot of cases where you go back, and I get hindsight is 2020, but sometimes there really are obvious patterns, and people for some reason don't go into those patterns. And now later on when something happens, it's like, oh, well, you could have caught it because there was enough there in context. So it's not just patterns of isolate. They're patterns in context that tell you exactly what's happening, and there is no ambiguity. There's no reason why you can't do something ahead of something happening. It's just for whatever reason they choose not to. I found in some cases politics, someone not wanting to call a mother, or someone not want to put a bad light on the school, or many reasons. But at the end of the day, unfortunately in this case, a young girl is no longer with us because what I believe, from what I'm being told, there were patterns that were there that just no one took serious enough. And now, unfortunately, Kimberly is no longer with us. And I do have the video. It's weird though, because in this video, it does show somebody throw a water bottle.
Right. So the girl in the blue pants is Sharon, is the older sister, and this is after the bottle was already thrown at Kimberly. So what she's doing is she's retaliating. She is retaliating, and you can see you will see her get hit and retaliate, and the other video.
Wait, you want me to play this one first though, or?
Yes, you can do that. So
what do we? Well, here, you know what? Let me play it first, and then you can kind of tell us what we saw, and then I'll play it again with that.
And then if you can put your cursor, I will tell you what we're looking at.
All right, so I'll play it first. Fight!
Okay.
So who are these? Who's that?
So you see her hugging her sister at the end. That was after her sister was hit, and she picks the bottle off of the floor.
Who picks the bottle up off the floor?
So if you put so the girl with the blue pants, that's my older niece, Kimberly's sister.
That's the 15-year-old.
That's the 15-year-old that was bullied, and what happens is right before that bottle hit Kimberly's head, and now Sharon, the sister, picks up the bottle and tries to retaliate against the girl who chucked the bottle at her sister.
Do you know if that bottle was picked up as evidence by law enforcement?
I am not aware of that. I am not aware of that.
Because they're going to need that bottle.
That bottle probably went back to its original owner after the fight was over.
I hope they have that bottle. They're going to need that bottle.
Right. Right.
Okay. So hold on 1 second.
Okay. So, there's the girl with the red head and the girl with the black hair, and they are part of that group that attacked. And the girl with the pink whitish pants, that's Kimberly. So she's behind.
The girl with the red hair or the girl with the black hair, one of them would have been the one that threw the bottle?
As far as I know, and I don't want to make a false accusation here, so I'm just saying what I heard from other kids who were there, who were eyewitnesses. So we have
Kimberly's the one with the pink pants right here.
Yes, that is Kimberly, and as you see, she's clinging on to Sharon, her older sister, and she walks behind her because before that she came in front and then she was hit in the head. So this video is an aftermath.
So she's clinging because at this point she's already hurt, right?
She's already hurt. She's already complaining that she's dizzy. And she's just clinging on to her sister. And they are not letting go, as you can see. And all of the group, and I can't tell you if it's boys, girls. You cannot make faces from this video, But
what's amazing is there's only a couple of bullies. The rest of the school could easily overpower them.
that's very true. And as far as I understood from the kids, school police was there. They are. This is on campground. This is on school property. So school police is there, but they are standoffish for some reason. I know school police is not real police, but they are instated and mandated to protect kids.
Did you say the second video shows something different?
It's just a different angle, I believe. I think this one actually contains two videos, but I'm not sure. This looks like the same.
Yeah, it looks like
video.
It's the same video.
Yeah, this looks like it's about the same angle. Try the first one.
I did the first one and the.
This one may have a secondary video right after this one. You'll see it swipe up, and then I'm not sure though. I have not seen these videos in memory.
Yeah, it looks like it's okay. I mean, it's still.
Yeah.
All right, looks like it was.
Yeah, it looks like it might be the same video, but there's another video that shows a different.
Yeah, I didn't
angle.
get the other. Did you have that other video?
I think I sent you 3. So if you go back to your.
Yeah, let me double check because I think I only see 2 in my messenger. Let me just take a look.
Okay, worst case, I can forward it to you.
Well, let me see, but maybe I'm wrong. It could be on me. Let me just let me back out. I'm going to back out and go back in. Bear with me for a second.
No problem.
But that must be hard to watch. Yeah, I only sent 2 videos.
Oh, in that case, let me look at the third one, and I am not sure if it's the. We'll see which is which.
In the meantime, while you do that, you mind if I get to the next part while you check for the other video?
Yes.
I wanted to talk about the school climate versus official policy. So in the days after Kimberly's death, students at Reseda described the school as a place where fights are so normalized that they barely shock anyone. They organized walkouts and protests holding justice for Kimberly signs and accusing the school of sugarcoating what happened, talking about it like an accident instead of acknowledging it was as a violent bullying incident. It was a violent bullying incident. On the other side, LAUSD written policies say that bullying and harassment are prohibited, that each campus must have complaint managers, and that reports of bullying must be investigated promptly and impartially. These policies talk about taking steps to protect students and prevent harassment from happening again. That creates a clear tension. On paper, the district says bullying won't be tolerated. On the ground, students say fights and bullying have become routine. And in this case, a hallway confrontation escalated into a fatal head injury. So Guy, before this happened, had you or anyone in the family seen or reported bullying toward the girls? And when you hear students describe fights at Reseda as normalized and sugar-coated, does that line up with what you've heard and seen?
So for starters, yes. I want to say I'm gonna take a little detour from what we were talking about, because when you read that article, there was a word there that triggered me a little bit, and that was that the school district used the word impartial. And unfortunately, within the legal system and within the school system, impartiality doesn't exist. If you come from a certain background or a different background, they judge you differently. And that's, as somebody who comes from, as an Israeli who has some background in Judaism, the Torah commands us to judge impartially, meaning if a rich man steals or a poor man steals, you judge them equally. The severity of their actions has nothing to do with their economic status. Stealing is stealing. Violence is violence. An eye for an eye. And we live in a society and in a culture that says, well, if it's an eye for an eye, then you poke this eye, they poke this eye. At the end of the world, at the end of the day, everybody's going to go blind. But that is not true. an eye for an eye is not about revenge. It's about consequences. If somebody comes to take out your eye and they know that a judge will tell them, well, you took their eye, therefore you pay with your eye, that's called what's the word I'm looking for? It's not to scare you, but this is to teach you those consequences to your answer. This is a caution. Okay, this is a disclaimer. And unfortunately, when it comes to bullies, there are no consequences. As we can see, they get back to school the next day and nobody says anything and nobody does anything. And we see in many cases, and I think we discussed the case of Diego. I forgot his last name. Diego, the kid who was bullied and died of his injuries, and that was in 2019.
That's the earlier case me and you were talking about. They wind up making a landmark case. $27 million was rewarded to the family for his death at the hands of bullying.
Right. And the thing is, the two kids who were doing the bullying didn't sit a single day in jail or in juvie or whatever. They were in detention for the amount of time for the investigation. And then the judge said, I think they would be better off back in society rather than in the penitentiary system. Now, I don't inherently disagree with it, but at the same time, if you do the crime, you do the time. And
you make such a good point, because I want to mention something. So sometimes people look at accountability as purely punitive, and it's not. Accountability is also a level of safety and deterrence, which if you kind of sweep everything, because that's kind of, in the correction system, we try to hold people accountable, and people say, well, it's punitive. It's like, guys, accountability, one, is deterrence, but also allows for us to control the situation so we can provide safety. And even if the person that did it, if the person that did something wrong subjectively feels that they're being punished, I don't care, as long as the person who was victimized feels safe.
Right.
I really don't care how the person who did something wrong feels, because at the end, I know what I'm doing, but I'm not going to let their subjective feeling now make me violate the rights of someone who at this point needs protection.
Correct. And it's society that needs protection, because when you introduce these bullies, or who may be later on criminals, whether you put them in the penitentiary system or not, you're punishing society. And why should society be punished for the crimes of why would there be innocent people hurt because some judge decided, well, I feel really bad for them? Again, going back to Torah laws, and I'm not comparing people to animals in no way or sense, but the law says if you have a bull that has killed a man, that bull is now considered a known offender, okay? And as a known offender, the bull needs to go, whether it's put to death or sacrificed or whatever. When the law comes to people, if there is a repeat offender, this offender is capable of doing the crime, you have to remove that offender from society. And I'm a big advocate that, same as you fool me once, shame on me, you fool me twice, shame on you, you fool me twice, shame on me. These kids who know no boundaries and no consequences to their actions keep fooling us. And I think I've told you that in my days as a teacher, when I wanted to punish kids for bad behavior, the answer that I got was, but we're kids. We're kids. You can't punish us. That's not right. If you don't want to be punished, don't do the crime. Unfortunately, the school system didn't back me and we're not talking corporal punishment. All we're talking about is putting them in detention, in to cool down somewhere. But
I'm in.
yeah, but what they would get is a 5-minute walk around to cool off, and then they're back in their seats doing exactly the same thing because there are no consequences. It's a reward to get out of the classroom and not have to listen to the teacher talk and get some fresh air and see the sun and the butterflies and the birds. And everything is twisted. Everything is upside down.
It's sad because technically accountability, it does start young, because if not, then a lot of them do wind up coming into the prison system because there was no one helping them at that point, and helping them is understanding accountability. The consequences with your behavior, especially now. You have a lot of young kids that are a bit entitled or feel entitled, and then you got let's say teachers could be trying to do the right thing, but unfortunately the mindset of these kids and then the support that they get from parents and even administration at the school, that the staff that can do something become disenfranchised, and sadly they give up because they feel that at this point here, and that's where it starts to get scary, when the people that know how to do the job don't do it anymore. Because at the end of the day is they're disenfranchised. And the funny thing is, some people may look at that, they're being lazy. No, they're not being lazy. You're misunderstanding it. And if you think they are, your approach is going to be wrong. Because if I think they're lazy when they need support, then they become resistant to me. So my thing is, hey, what's happening here? And then when you give them a chance to communicate, because believe it or not, disenfranchisement is not one moment you decide you're going to stop doing what you're going to do. It's gradual. It erodes at you to the point where you don't even realize that you're the outcome of disenfranchisement. It's when someone comes in and says, hey, what happened to you? You used to be so active. And then you look back and say, wow, yeah, I guess I have changed. Well, after 20 years of dealing with what's happening in the schools and trying to hold accountability, and they're not allowing it because they're concerned of maybe pressure from the families or political stuff, or, as I said, the vanity of the school. Well, and now the biggest concern has nothing to do with safety, but rather perception. And that's a concern that I feel, and that actually goes to my next question for you, Guy. It says here, I got when you look at LAUSD promises and anti-bullying, which I'm sure you know by now, and Title IX policies, and then you look at how the school actually handled your niece's situation, where do you feel the school failed to live up to its own rules?
So, as I told you previously, when I went to the rally, which was heartwarming and gut-wrenching, and the kids were so amazing, many kids came to us and told us that they've been bullied, mostly by the same kids who were bullying Kimberly and her sister and niece. And the thing is, one of the girls, she was there with her mother, and her mother told my friend who was there with me, my friend was supporting me, and the mother of this girl, who was Kimberly's friend, said that her child tried to kill herself because of the bullying. And when you reach to that point, something is wrong. Something is clearly not working. And again, as someone who's been in that system, and when I, as a teacher, stood to these bullies, and I got a lot of false hot air promises, none of them ever came true. I didn't back down, and I didn't give up. And I distinctively remember that when I got hired to do the job, one of the supervisors told me, kind of like in a hush hush whisper in my ear, she said, just remember, it's just a job. But that's the thing, this is not just a job. If at the end of the day kids are going to die, then this is not a job. That's if that's your job, then you might as well just be an executioner.
And you know what, I'll be honest with you, even having this, it's good that we have this discussion, because I will guarantee you that there's a lot of people that will be watching this, especially those that are involved in the system, that need this to be said, but they can't say it.
Right.
And maybe they're the ones that are sending out emails hoping that this doesn't happen to a student, but now all the signs are here. I have a story. I I don't want to be too specific, but it was told to me by my wife, a friend of hers, her daughter may have been 12. I think her daughter's about 12 years old, same age, or maybe a little younger. I forget, but was on a hit list from another student.
Wow.
Now, when you look at like active shooter stuff like that, you know, these hit lists are the things that are the obvious signs. You know, this isn't hindsight 20 putting pieces together on information that you didn't have, but rather an obvious sign. So when as parents, like for something like this, when it comes to safety, I'll be honest with you. I don't care what the school policy says at all. My objective is my child's safety. I want a restraining order. I don't want the principal handling it. I want law enforcement to handle it. I want, if that kid's still going to the school, then you're going to homeschool my kid. You know, I want those measures, and I'm going to be extreme, and they're not. These are the times we live in, and I sometimes these policies, they're put in play and they make it look like on the surface that we're going to treat this as this extreme until it happens.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you don't get that promised effort. And to be honest with you, it's really the push from the families that probably could lead to more preventive actions, because it's like, well, your policy says this. Yeah, but what? What when did policy that you implement become an inconvenience, or when did policy you write become an inconvenience when it needs to be implemented? Right.
And your story just reminds me that a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, has a very similar story. So he's his son went to one of the schools here in Los Angeles and was bullied, and at one point they pushed him down to the ground and choked him. And this is a scrawny kid who is an straight A student, not a troublemaker, very introverted, and he finds himself on this floor passing out. And when they call the dad, he rushes to the school and he tells the school, you know, the principal, if you're not going to take care of that, I'm calling the police tomorrow. Now, at that point, COVID hit, and all the kids went to be homeschooled and remote learning. And when COVID was done, they asked the kid, do you want to go back to school? And the dad says, no, he's going to continue studying remotely from home because you have not even removed that bully from the school. So it definitely resonates with me, this story. And I hear so many people are coming to me, coworkers, neighbors, and everybody's telling me my niece is being bullied, my kid, my daughter, my son, my brother. A lot of people tell me I used to be bullied. And bullying takes many, many, many forms. It could be, the redhead kid who's being bullied because he's a redhead, or the immigrant kid because he doesn't speak English, or just the nerdy kid because he's a straight A student. So again, this is a cultural problem. And I remember in my days, if I knew that my dad was going to come to school to talk to a teacher, I didn't want to get into trouble, and my dad never even raised his hand on me. All he took was a look. I respected my parents, I respected my teacher, and even when we were bad kids at school, we never got to this point. So I want to say it's hyper-liberalism that's happening in the school system that stripped the power. First, they stripped the power from the teachers, and I'm not a proponent of bringing back the
No, I get what you're saying. No, my wife being a teacher, I get what you're saying.
Right. But now even the parents don't have the authority. A friend of mine.
It's funny how you mentioned that too, because when we go to give an argument that we know makes sense, sometimes we censor ourselves because we think people are going to take it to an extreme, and that's on them.
Right.
You know, you shouldn't have to say it's common sense. You shouldn't have to be afraid to say, hey, I think the teachers, and all of a sudden, first person goes, oh, you're saying teachers should beat up kids again? Who said that?
Exactly.
You know, it's crazy how we wind up never really getting what needs to be out there because we're more concerned about saying it right as opposed to saying what we feel.
Right. Exactly.
And I wanted to ask you a question. I want to kind of, if it's okay, even though the story happened at the school, I do want to correct something. The media had it that, and I did focus it a little bit on my video, that she was sent for medical maybe a couple of days later after she had headaches and stuff, and we know that not to be true. She was
no, she immediately said, I have a headache and I'm feeling dizzy. So her parents took her parents, not the school, took her to see a doctor. I'm not sure about the medical facility, but what I do know, and I was under the impression that if a kid goes, they do all the tests that needs to be done, an X-ray, CT scan, CAT scan, whatever you want to call it. And I was sure that they did it, and they didn't find anything until later. Again, the language barrier. I asked my sister-in-law, and my sister-in-law said, no, the doctors visually inspected her, said, I don't see a contusion. There's no fracture to the skull. She's fine. She can follow my
visually,
fingers.
they said that. Like they
Visually.
So let me, if I could read something off to you, because I have on for the ER where medical concerns begin. I have two questions I was hoping I can ask you.
Yeah.
So after she was hit in the head, Kimberly was taken from school to an emergency department. Family's account is that she was examined visually. Physicians looked her over, checked basic signs, and then decided to discharge her. No CT scan or MRI was ordered. Despite a clear head strike from a thrown metal bottle and her age, she was sent home with pain medication and told to monitor for symptoms. From a layperson's perspective, that's where the malpractice question begins. With pediatric head trauma, a blow to the head can cause delayed internal bleeding. When you combine a high-risk mechanism like this with ongoing symptoms such as headaches, many people would expect at least imaging or a period of observation, not just a quick visual exam and discharge. And we actually do that for the inmates, by the way. Get hit in the head, they go right out to medical, we do the scan, and we watch them overnight. Wait, I have one side question real quick before I get to this medical question. Now that the metal water bottle was used as a weapon, because that's what technically happened, whether thrown or manually used.
Right.
If it was thrown, intent will have to be proven. But if it was manually used and hit, the intent's there.
I mean, since it's not being thrown as a it was thrown. It was
at them, right? So. You know how like these defense, they'll say, "Oh, they didn't mean to hit her," but if she actually really used it, there's no denying that. But don't get me wrong, still if you throw it at somebody, it's just a bigger fight. But you can get accountability there. But after that happened, was there any effort at that point to ban those type of water bottles in the school?
Not that I know of. So I mean,
are we pushing for that?
I will definitely push for that. But again, I don't blame the weapon. I blame the perpetrator.
No. I get it, but and that's a great way of looking at it. By the way, I apologize. You're right on that, but I want to mention something. I'm not someone that usually overreacts. I get it, but what I'm saying is now that a likelihood become a probability. We talked about this on the way. My biggest concern is if it happens again. I mean, do kids really need a metal water bottle, or can we give them a plastic water bottle? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Why, if they could get a plastic water bottle, then I'm sorry, guys, at this point, we can't risk this happening again, because God forbid you get into another fight, kid can't, control their emotions. And the closest thing they have to a weapon is the water bottle.
Right. And that I think the reason that they use these water bottles is because they are, as the term is, a thermos. It keeps the water cold or hot, depending what you put in it. And a plastic one would just be at room temperature, whatever. If it's a hot day, the water will heat, etc., etc. So I understand why parents would give cold water to their kids in a water bottle that maintains the temperature, the cold temperature. But at the same time, anything could become a weapon, and unfortunately, it could be a rock on the school ground. It could be a pencil. I remember that when I was in school, my sister was stabbed in the head with a pencil. She wasn't stabbed hard, but she was stabbed hard enough to cry, and I had to stand up to the kid, which was actually our neighbor in our building, and I did not want to fight him. He was a smaller kid than me. My sister is younger than me, and I did not want to hit him because I knew that if I would hit him, he would be in a serious problem. And then again, we would be having bad neighborhood, neighborly relationship. And the kid was not a bully, but he was, a little,
violent.
yeah, a little violent. So what reason would he have to stab a girl? Probably because she didn't give him the attention, which is part of bullying. Boys pull girls' hair to get attention. It's considered bullying. It's not as bad a bullying as throwing a bottle at somebody's head, but it's still.
Yeah, because one is, and I agree, because one is obviously, like, even as a kid here, one is getting the person's attention, the other is actually hurting the individual. Right. And again, it's also within the context of what's happening in that moment.
Right.
I may be a boy that likes a girl, and maybe I pull some hair or whatever. I want, again, it's more attention. We don't know. It's attention, but not condoning it, but that's a lot different than.
No, but if a boy does that for the first time and he's told, don't do that, and he never does that again, problem solved.
Right. But once they continue, and then I was the only thing about the water bottle is, when I work in a facility, if something could be considered dangerous, you have to know for the fact that it can be used again. And at this point, if it ever is used again, then the liability turns into negligence.
Right.
Because people will always come back and say, yo, this happened before. And so I would say, unfortunately, there would be some immediate need to react on that. And I'm hopefully that water bottle was taken by law enforcement. And this is a question about what the doctor said that night. So at the first ER visit, if you know this, I don't know if you know this, what did the medical team actually tell the family? Did anyone explain why they were comfortable sending a 12-year-old home without any imaging after a blow to the head from a metal bottle?
As far as I understood from my sister-in-law, the doctor looked at her, said she looks fine. She could take Tylenol for her pain medication. And if she has any type of symptoms, bring her back. And let's do a follow-up in 10 days. So this doctor was 100% sure that there's nothing wrong with Kimberly, but without actually taking the steps to verify that. It's, call it complacency, call it cockiness, but this doctor was 100% persuaded that he doesn't need to spend that extra whatever it costs to do a CT scan. And from my conversations with other medical professionals it's
automatic.
Yeah, they said it's available technology, it's advanced, and it's cheap.
Yeah, like, so even in my world, it's automatic, because a head injury is no joke, especially, you even had that movie on it recently. I think it was Will Smith started talking about things with the football thing, and and I got you got to cover all bases. You know what? I can't feel that. Let me just check to see if there's any internal damage. And then I get a lot of people that have a head injury, and a couple of days later they fall asleep, never wake up again.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
The second question I had on this was, now that she had a major brain bleed, what makes you, the family, feel like the first ER visit wasn't just a tragic outcome, but a failure of the system, possibly medical malpractice that needs to be addressed? And that's because you basically answered that, right? You felt that there was not enough strong enough fault. Her age, they knew she was hit with a metal water bottle. She felt. Did she say she felt dizzy? And
yeah. The first day she said she was dizzy. Yes, yeah. And then for the next 3 or 4 days, she acted normal, which is why her parents thought nothing of it. When a doctor tells you something, you want to trust that doctor, because when you go to a doctor, or when you put the life of a loved one in the care and the hands of a medical doctor, it's like giving a baby to a nanny. You don't expect anything bad to happen. You trust the medical professionals with your life and with the life of your loved ones. So this is why I think I mentioned that I started a petition on change.org called Let's Implement the Kimberly Act, to put it in legislation so a doctor cannot dismiss any head injury, any trauma to the head, especially a child, by saying, oh, I look at them, they look okay. No, you actually have to take them to make sure there's no internal bleeding.
Yeah, and I actually I do want to go into that. And it's crazy how you have to have an act that reminds people of what should be done within that role that they're playing. Because if we see it as common sense, the professionals should see it the same way. So, Guy, I just want to talk about the next part. We have the collapse, the brain surgery, and the ICU week. So in the days that followed, she was back at home, Kimberly, but suffering intense headaches. From the family's perspective, she had been cleared. They had taken her to the hospital. Doctors had examined her, and she was sent home with instructions. They were trying to follow medical advice. And around February 21st, everything changed. She suddenly screamed in severe pain, had a seizure, and collapsed. When she reached Valley Presbyterian Hospital, she was in cardiac arrest. Medical staff resuscitated her and this time ordered imaging of her brain. The scan showed that major blood vessels had ruptured and there was a large hemorrhage, significant internal bleeding inside her skull. She was transferred to UCLA Mattel Children's Hospital for neurosurgery. There she went through roughly 6 hours of emergency brain surgery. Surgeons removed part of her skull to relieve pressure, evacuated blood, and placed her in an induced coma. The family was told her chance of survival was about 1%. In the early morning hours of February 25th, around 3:30 a.m., after 8 days, after eight days after the hallway incident, her heart stopped. And excuse me. Thank you. Sorry, let me do that again. After the early morning hours of February 25th, around 3:30 a.m., 8 days after the hallway incident, her heart stopped and she died, or she passed. So, as her uncle, when you relive that week, from the night she screamed and collapsed to seeing her after brain surgery with that 1% prognosis, what moments from that ICU experience are burned into your memory?
So I'll tell it the way I remember it, and that the day that she collapsed was actually a Saturday, and she was normal the entire day. That's the day my wife and I went to visit the family, and we've been with them for hours. And usually my wife sits with the adults, and I entertain the kids. And I took her and one of our other nephews on a walk in the neighborhood, and they were showing me, the neighbors' houses and which neighbor has which kind of dog and what kind of trees they have in their neighborhood. And then we, walked around, got back home, played some games. Then she said, Tio, uncle, I want to learn French. So I said, why don't we do it on Duolingo? And she had an amazing perception or grasping, and she did a bunch of lessons. And I remember telling her, "You have an amazing brain. You have a really amazing brain." That's what I told her. And then my wife and I went home. That was almost like 11:30 p.m. And then 30 minutes later, my wife gets a phone call that my sister-in-law says that she's screaming in pain and that they're going to take her to the emergency room, that she's screaming and that she has a headache. And not even 15 minutes later, we get a phone call, come to the hospital. I was already in bed, and I think I slept for 5 minutes, and I wake up because my wife is rushing, she's buzzing around and she's in hysteria, but she was not trying to wake me up. But the minute I understood something was wrong, I told her, I'm coming with you. So, and I couldn't just leave her leave her side. So I went with her, and that's when we went to the emergency room. And that's on the way we learned that on the way to the hospital, she had she threw up, she had a seizure, she fainted, or she passed out. And then at the hospital, I guess either she had cardiac arrest or maybe on the way there, we're not sure, but they were able to stabilize her. And we were there for hours. So I think we arrived there around maybe around 1:45 a.m. And we were there till almost like I want to say about 4:30, maybe 5 a.m. And the doctor immediately takes us in and says she has to see a brain surgeon right now, and I'm going to give it to you flat out, no sugarcoating. Whatever she's going to go through has 1% chance of survival. And basically he tells the family, go bid her farewell. And then immediately they put her on an ambulance and rushed her to UCLA. And this is news that the kid is fine 1 second, and the next second they're telling us she's got 1% of surviving. And
did you guys connect this at this point to the incident that happened with the model?
So yes, I mean, I say this has to be related, because there's no chance in the world that suddenly she'll have an internal brain hemorrhaging in her brain, and this has to be related to the trauma that she got. But we never got confirmation on that. So even though the doctors had that information, they, I cannot confirm nor deny kind of attitude. And this may be related to what we were talking about previously, about systems wanting to protect the system rather than be transparent. And at UCLA, I have to say that the staff was amazing, and the doctors were amazing, the nurses were amazing, and everybody loved her, and they all talked to her and held her hand. And we arrived there, they were super, accommodating. We have nothing bad to say about the people at the UCLA facility. They actually gave us some sort of hope, and I don't know if that was because they were optimistic or because it was their bedside manner, but they had these 3 procedures on Kimberly, where they did an operation and they drew the blood out, and indeed, for the first 24 hours, it seemed like she may make it out alive, but they said there's no way of telling how far the damage is. So she could wake up but not be able to talk, not be able to walk, not be able to see. We didn't know, and that is, uncertainty has a way with anxiety and other negative emotions, where you don't know what's happening. You're powerless. Everything's out of the realm of your control, and when it's a loved one, and especially a child, it's 1,000-fold harder. I've seen loved ones, pass away. I've been with my grandparents and great uncles, the natural order of things. I've never experienced child death, and I don't wish that on my worst enemies. Passing the 24 hours where they tell us maybe she'll make it, and if she does, if the brain activity continues and she's able to breathe on her own, we'll take her off the anesthesia, and she will probably wake up, and then we'll assess the damage. And they had an entire team to assess that. But as the night progressed, as the 24 hours passed, her brain swelling was going up and down and through the roof, and they put her on more medication, and eventually they take us in, and at this point, both my wife and me have been with the family and with Kimberly at her room for like almost 2 days. We tried to give them respite. I gave my wife a few hours, she gave me a few hours. But come, I want to say Monday, or maybe even, I think it was Monday, they take us in and they tell us there's only 2 options. One is to keep her connected to the machines, but her heart will give out and she will pass away. or take her off the machines, which is the same outcome. Her heart will give out and she will pass away. And the family was unable to make that decision, mostly because we're all people of faith, different religions. I'm Jewish. My wife converted to Judaism. The family is Christian. They come from Peru, which is a Catholic country, but they are specifically not affiliated with the Catholicism. But we enlisted all of my friends, all of our family members, everybody spiritual, everybody religious. We just prayed for a miracle. And on Wednesday night, and I distinctively remember the time because I was home sleeping. I got home around 9 p.m. and I went to bed because I had to wake up early the next day. But I woke up at 3:33, and I remember that because it's a triplicate. I opened my eyes, and that's the time on the clock. And my wife's not next to me, so I know she stayed at the hospital, and I'm contemplating, should I send her a message, or maybe she's sleeping and I don't want to wake her up. So I tried to go back to sleep. That did not work that well. And then around 4 a.m., I get the text message that Kimberly actually passed away roughly around 3:30 a.m. That was the time of death. So
was that a shocker to you? Did you have hope that she was going to pull through?
I always have hope, but even though I'm a big believer in miracles, I'm a big believer in the power of God. I also understand that He has His own reasons. We don't always know what's behind the veil, or why things happen the way they are, why bad things happen to good people. We just accept it as it is, but we still put every ounce of faith, every ounce of power, of prayer power into this. And it was a shocker. I put all my faith into it, and then I had to come to terms with the fact that either God or Kimberly herself chose that path.
When you put like the whole chain together, the hallway attack, the first ER visit, days of headaches, then the collapse and hemorrhage, how do you see the chain of failures? Where do you feel things could and should have gone differently for her? Is it the first doctor's appointment is really where everything could have been probably caught ahead of time?
Yes, I believe that if the doctor had followed, I'm not going to say procedure because I don't know what the procedure is, but in my brain, if a child gets hit in the head with a blunt force trauma, they need to be examined, no questions asked. And that's the main failure. The bullying, that's a cultural thing that needs to go. That thing has no place in a 21st Western world society. It just doesn't. We're not cave people. We need to surpass that. Without getting into politics, we have a certain culture that accepts people from other cultures, which is beautiful. But if the other people from other cultures are unwilling to accept the culture that they're coming into, we have a problem. And if they're bringing a different culture into it, and I'm not necessarily saying that bullying is a non-American problem. It is an American problem, but it didn't used to be. So where did it come from? Where does that? I need to prove how brutish I am to be honored and respected, and don't diss me, or all those buzzwords that a lot of kids use and a lot of adults use. Where does that come from?
I have on like the criminal side, what I was able to find out is LAPD's robbery homicide division is treating the case as a homicide, and because all of the students involved are minors, I got very little information that's been released publicly. So I have no arrests have been publicly announced, even though police have taken statements, obtained student videos, and had the autopsy.
Right.
On the school district side, LAUSD issued a brief statement expressing condolences, citing confidentiality and student privacy, stating that it's cooperating with law enforcement and saying it has provided counseling and additional support at Rosita Charter. The statement did not address specific questions about supervision, prior bullying complaints, or whether any staff are under internal review. Hey, you did send me that third video?
I believe I did.
Was it a link? Was that the link?
If you show me the screen, it should be like a 20-second video, I believe.
Oh, it's a petition. Okay, hold on. Let me show you.
No, that's the petition is a petition. But if you look, I can try to show you on my phone.
Yeah, I only got 2 videos that come up.
That is interesting.
I do got the video for the memoriam, though. I want to play that in a little bit. But actually, okay. I just saw. I do want to play that, but let me show people the. Hey guys, take a look. This is the. Is this to go?
Yeah.
Forward?
Now that I'm looking, I don't really see that video, so I'm gonna go into the page that sent it to me, and I'm gonna try to forward it to you.
If you can't find it, it's not end of the world. So I was able to get the one angle.
No, I think let's try it now, and you tell me if you got it.
Okay, give me one second. I also want to show people the. I'm going to show people the. Whoops. I want to show people the other.
You should have it. It's a 25-second video. It looks like it got through. I don't know why it wouldn't go through before.
Does everybody see this? This is the petition. We're at 1,129 signatures, and this is for the Kimberly Act mandate, which we're going to cover shortly. And it's basically for thorough examination for children after head trauma. And the issue is, on an ordinary school day, my 12-year-old niece, Kimberly, was assaulted by bullies and struck on the head with a metal thermos. She went home with a head injury. She was examined. She was sent home. No CT scan was performed. No advanced imaging was ordered. No internal bleeding was ruled out. 4 days later, her condition worsened. She suffered from brain aneurysm. 3 days later, Kimberly had passed away at the hospital. She was 12 years old. A child who should have been worried about homework and friendship. A child who laughed loudly. A child who trusted the adults around her to protect her. Head injuries in children are not rare. They're the one leading cause of death and disability among young people in the United States. According to Center of Disease Control, CDC, traumatic brain injuries, TBI, contribute to thousands of pediatric deaths each year and result in hundreds of thousands of emergency department visits. Children 0 to 17 account for a substantial portion of these cases. Many of these injuries initially appear mild, but brain trauma does not always look dramatic from the outside. A visual assessment alone cannot detect internal bleeding, swelling, or vascular damage. When evaluation protocols vary from provider to provider, the margin of error becomes deadly. Kimberly's life might have been saved if comprehensive diagnosis protocols had been mandatory and uniformly applied. Her death cannot be undone, but it can mean something. We call on lawmakers to enact the Kimberly Act. The Kimberly Act would establish a federally standardized pediatric head trauma evaluation protocols, require clear evidence-based criteria for mandatory and CT or MRI imaging when children present with significant head injuries, mandate documented neurological monitoring and follow-up instructions for guardians, require uniform training for emergency and urgent care providers and pediatric head trauma assessment, and create accountability standards to ensure protocols are followed across all medical facilities. This is not about punishing individual providers. This is not about closing dangerous gaps in the system. No parent should ever hear, "We didn't think it was necessary." No family should live with the question of whether a deeper examination could have saved their child. When children are struck in the head at school, on a field, at home, caution must be the rule, not the exception. We regulate school buses. We regulate car seats. We regulate playground safety. We must regulate medical responses to pediatric head trauma with the same seriousness. Turn grief into protection. It's a cruel truth that tragedy often reveals how deeply we love. Kimberly's absence has shattered our family, but her name can become protection for others. By signing this petition, you're calling for national safeguards that could prevent another child's preventable death. You're saying that when it comes to children and head injuries, good enough is not good enough. You're saying that no child's life should depend on guesswork. Let Kimberly's name stand for vigilance. Let it stand for accountability. Let it stand for life. Please sign, please share. Help us ensure that no other family buries a child because a head injury was underestimated. For media stories on my niece, and there's some links there. Guys, don't forget, please check out this page. And a
lot of people have been sharing their stories on that page and why they signed it, and the amount of condemning evidence is there. and this just needs to go up to the
It's amazing because I never even knew this was an issue about. I thought this was automatic because we do it automatic in my world, and to know that that's not being done, I feel maybe I'm wrong. I feel it's just such common sense just to do it, to kind of universal precaution. So to hear that's not being done, it's eye opening. And then I had censored death. What kind of conversations have you had with the school, with LAUSD, or with investigators? Do you feel like you're getting straight answers from them, or are you having to learn more from news reports and your own digging than from the people directly responsible for her safety?
So that's a tough question because personally, I did not talk to the police, and I'm everything is my wife. She's the lioness who's pursuing justice for Kimberly, and I support her. I stay behind with the kids. I help my brother-in-law and sister-in-law with whatever they need, but my wife is the one who is doing the actual justice pursuing. The thing is, I'm pretty sure she did not get straight answers because she's not happy, and she has she's communicating with the police, she's communicating with lawyers and district attorneys and whoever needs to be involved in order for Kimberly to get justice. And let's put it that way. The media is one thing, and they're doing the best that they can to cover it, but they don't always have all the details, as nor do we. And sometimes we hear things from the kids at the school because they are coming forward. People are still sending us a lot of messages on the social media platforms.
Sometimes the media breaks the story and then they get it out there and then they disappear.
Yes, we're going to try to make this not disappear until justice is served, until rules, regulations, guardrails are put in place, because we want Kimberly's life, and her tragic death means something to the benefit of the entire society, if not the entire world.
Yeah, and the Kimberly Act does keep an interest there with the public, because I'm sure, as you mentioned, there are a lot of people that have gone through this, and it's not something that has been shared widely. So I think it's great to bring awareness to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have some legal paths I wanted to run by you, kind of like with negligence, supervision, malpractice, and blame shifting. So the family is now looking at multiple legal paths. One is negligent supervision and bullying against LAUSD and possibly specific school staff, arguing that the school failed to adequately supervise hallways at dismissal, failed to respond to warning signs about bullying, and allowed a violent environment to persist despite district policies. Another is a potential medical malpractice claim over that first ER visit based on the idea that a reasonable standard of care for pediatric head trauma was not followed when they discharged her without imaging or observation. There's also a real-world complication. Once a malpractice theory is in play, the student who threw the bottle or the district can try to shift blame by saying she died because of what the hospital did, not because of what happened at school. That doesn't erase the violence, but it can muddy accountability if people aren't careful. So when you think about pursuing a malpractice case over the first ER visit, do you worry that the student who threw the bottle or the school district might try to hide behind that and say she died because of the hospital, not because of us? And how are you thinking about balancing going after the hospital with making sure the people who hurt her and the people who failed to protect her still face full accountability?
So I'm going to talk about a hypothetical story. If you got a mugger with a knife and he stabs a person in the back and steal their purse, and that person's bleeding on the street, and then comes some good Samaritan and gives them CPR, and by the time the ambulance comes, the paramedic says they look fine to me and they leave, who do you blame? The guy who stabbed or the paramedic who didn't take her to the hospital? At this point, the blame is 100% on both of them. You stabbed, you murdered, and you didn't provide medical support. You had a wrongful death, or you want to call it manslaughter. It doesn't matter, but they're both culpable. One,
like what you said, they're different scales.
Right.
I like that. You can keep. Sorry, I wanted to emphasize what you said. I love the fact that you're saying, you know what, because I think the world sometimes does that, right? They say, well, I'll give you an example. Even in the correction setting, you know, like if someone does something wrong, we talk about manipulation. Let's say, you know, and the inmate manipulates staff, and someone says, well, the inmate is maybe 50% responsible, but the staff's the other 50%. No, they're not in the same scale.
Right.
The inmate's 100% responsible, and the staff is 100% responsible.
Correct.
And I love that. I think more people should realize, like, sometimes they try to balance these scales, and we're sitting there, what are you doing?
Right.
You know? So I like what you said. I am going to sue them for malpractice, but that's a whole different lawsuit.
Right.
At the end of the day, we wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for what happened here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I like that. And I wanted to ask you one more thing about accountability before we move into the Kimberly Act, because I want to get a little more information on that. But for accountability, I have you know, when you talk about accountability, what does that look like from the school side, from the medical side, and from the student or students involved? What would need to happen for you, your family, to feel like someone has truly accepted responsibility?
So responsibility is one thing. Responsibility is the person who, you know, did not put the guardrails or did not put the whatever system that should have been, you know, I'll call it checks and balances. That system, if it's not there, there's no meaning to responsibility. You can say mea culpa 1,000 times, it's not going to change anything. If another child gets hurt because you took responsibility without fixing the problem, then that's just, you know, saying sorry without actually implementing the fix. And again, we're not here to punish anybody. This is not about you did me wrong, you need to go to jail. You might need to go to jail because you broke the law, or because you did something wrong, or because you did not do your job as you're expected to. You may lose your job. You may need to go through training. You may need to go through, I don't know, some sort of punitive measurement. But unless the system itself, I want to say, gets uprooted and rebuilt in a way where these things don't happen, and the system includes the culture, we're just going to see that over and over again, and we're going to have a different kid go and different parents sitting here with you talking about the same thing as I am.
And it's hard. It's hard for me to know, like, as I said earlier, to know that we need an act to bring about awareness so doctors know that they need to check on kids with head injuries where, you know, again, I guess maybe I'm in the professions, you know, corrections. I do oversee part of that responsibility is the medical side. So we do oversee medical care for the inmates. You know, we do have a responsibility over that in partnership with the medical provider, but we do oversee it. So, I mean, you know, I don't know if it's my expertise. I'm trying to think if this is something that had to be taught to me or something that's automatic. But if my kid got a head injury, I could picture myself going in and say, hey, guys, I want that CT. And I don't know if is that knowledge I learned in this profession, or is that knowledge that's automatic? I would like to think that's automatic. And then to have to say that we have to pass a bill or a law to tell doctors, hey, what are you doing here? Make sure you check the head. I just can't fathom that wouldn't be part of what their job would entail. So I mean, the scary thing is for me is this, have we determined that this is negligent from the provider, or is this really something that they just don't do that now has to be corrected?
It could be both, because I'm not well versed in medical law. I'm not well versed on medical procedures, and as much as I have, you know, faith in doctors that I know, and I go to the doctor and I have a problem, an itch, doesn't matter what it is, an itch, a fracture, a headache. I trust that doctor to have the best interest of me in heart as a patient. Now, I know that unfortunately in the culture that we live, that's not always the case. There are a lot of doctors who would push pills because there are pharmaceutical companies that pay them to give a pill rather than to fix the problem. there's this hypothetical, I'm going to call it a joke, but it's kind of like, if you want to get a cure for cancer, take 10 heads of cancer research pharmaceuticals and give them cancer, and you'll have a solution for cancer the next day. And unfortunately, it feels truth. It feels true. It feels like a statement that isn't made as a joke, but it's actually an observational judgment on the culture that we live in. And everything is a business, and we see that because the way of organizations being handled as businesses, including the school district, including the schools themselves, including, I can't tell about the police. I have a lot of respect for the police. I feel in certain states, the police's hands are tied behind their backs because of politicians, because of politics, because of policies, because of God knows ideology that does not belong in the 21st century in the Western world. And I feel the same again as with my experience as being a teacher in one of the school districts, not having my back. But I'm not the only one. There's so many other stories of teachers who stand up to bully, who want to not just push knowledge and cram knowledge into the kids' heads or be pacifiers for unruly kids and let them be on their phone in the classroom. They actually want to educate. There is no back and there is no room in the system for that. The system doesn't want that. Why? Because they're afraid, because there's liability, because the parents' voices. Nowadays, it's not even the parents. The parent can tell their kid, go do your homework. And he says, if you're going to make me do my homework, I'm going to call the cops on you. I'll call the social services. You're bullying me. You're torturing me, whatever. Kids nowadays have more power than they should. Parents have no parental authority, and teachers have no respect or authority and no backing from the system.
So I'm reading here, for kids with head injuries, doctors generally do three things. The injury is clearly serious. The child is very out of it, hard to wake, or obviously badly hurt. They go straight to a CT scan and aggressive treatment. If it looks mild, they're supposed to use standard checklists like PCARN to decide which kid must get a scan, which kids can be observed closely without a scan to avoid unnecessary radiation. And those checklists look at simple things. Did the child pass out? Are they vomiting? Is the headache severe or getting worse? Any signs of a fracture, big bump deformity? Are they acting confused, not themselves, or getting drowsier? How did the injury happen? Fall, car crash, object thrown at the head? How the young child is. The problem is that this isn't used the same way everywhere. Same places scan, some places scan almost everyone. Others send kids home after a quick look. In a case like Kimberly's, metal bottle to the head, then days of bad headaches. The family's argument is that there should be no world where a child is just visually checked, told take Tylenol, and sent home without either a scan or a very clear structure observation plan with detailed warning signs and follow up. Let me ask a question here.
Yeah.
What outside? So before the day where she passed out, in the day from the doctor's appointment to that day, was there any signs outside of that? Was she complaining?
She was complaining about headaches, but other than that, she was pretty normal. And the problem is when you give somebody a pain medication, if their pain is numb, their behavior should be about the same. Yeah. And it really depends on the pain medication, obviously, because some pain medications will knock you out. But when it's Tylenol or just regular pain medication, and which affects child way more than it would affect an adult because of the dosage and the size of the body, etc., she might be, not exhibiting any type of sign that there's something wrong, which is exactly how it was with Kimberly.
So, again, just a side question. I just want to see.
Yeah.
Can the parents demand? So I want to just look at something. If the parents could demand more, like one of the lessons here, obviously, is, at this point, in case medical is not doing enough, what can the parents do? We're pushing a lot on the Kimberly law to mandate certain things, but in the process, what could the family also do are we doing well, let's get to the Kimberly Act. Hold on, let me get to that because
Okay.
I have something I want to read about that real quick, and then we'll get into because I have some questions here for that.
Okay.
All right, so I got for the there is some advice here for parents. Parents can always do some things differently, but in a case like this, the primary responsibility is still on the professional in the system, not on the family. For context, in Kimberly's case, the ER doctor visually examined her, did no imaging, and told her mom to give acetaminophen, or what is that?
Acetaminophen, I believe.
Yeah, acetaminophen, and come back if symptoms worsen. Over the next 4 days, she had headaches, but otherwise seemed okay, even cheerful when Guy visited until she suddenly screamed in pain, seized and collapsed. That pattern fits what a lot of pediatric ED research describes. Most concussions and head injury care happens at home after discharge, and parents are trying to follow whatever they were told in a rushed, stressful visit. Many parents simply don't have the medical knowledge to know when this headache is expected versus this could be a bleed. So in terms of can parents do more, there are two honest answers. Her mom did what most reasonable parents would do, took her to the ER immediately, followed the doctor's instructions, and went back when things obviously got worse. The law and the standard of care put the duty on the doctor to recognize risk, apply head injury guidelines, and either image, observe, or give very clear, specific red flag instructions. If those weren't adequate, that's not on parent. That's the basis of a malpractice argument. So for parents going forward, after any significant blow to the head, especially from a hard object or a big fall, parents can be very explicit in the ER. She was hit in the head with a metal water bottle at school. She's having bad headaches. We're worried about a brain bleed. Ask directly, can you explain why you are not doing a CT or MRI? What are the risks you're worried about?
Right.
And before leaving, insist on clear written instruction what symptoms mean. Call your pediatrician, and what symptoms mean, go back to the ER immediately. At home, if headaches get worse, if there's vomiting, confusion, extreme sleepiness, seizures, or any change in behavior, they should treat that as an emergency and come back regardless of how recent the last visit was. But it's important to note that this doesn't turn into the parents failed. The research is clear that most parents want better discharge education and feel unsure what to do after they get home. They're not ignoring obvious instructions. They're often not given enough usable guidance in the first place. The petition and any malpractice case are basically saying the system has to be designed so that a reasonable parent doing reasonable things doesn't lose a child like this. So a great question for you is, a lot of people ask, could the parents have done more? In your view, how much of this is about what families know to look for, and how much is about the system giving or not giving them the right information and care in the first place?
So I've actually had that conversation this morning with somebody else when we discussed people being unaware of their rights as patients, as customers, as parents. The system doesn't give you a handbook and says, these are your rights, be sure to memorize all of them, and when you come to this situation, this specific right applies to you. For example, there's a lot of resources that people are unaware of. I wasn't aware of. People who've been reading about Kimberly's story have been coming and telling me, why don't you reach out to this governmental agency? It's called Victim of Crime. I never heard of it. I was a victim of crime. If I've known about that, it would have saved me an X amount of money on doctor visitation. In Kimberly's case, because she's deceased, unfortunately, I don't know if that even applies, but there are resources that the average Joe never hears about them. We don't know our own rights. We're not being told our own rights. And I'm not blaming anybody for not being able to give us all the information out there, because there's a lot of information, and a lot of the information is only relevant to you when that time comes. But when it comes to a doctor and a doctor visitation, where it comes to life and death, this shouldn't be a question of, do you know your rights, and should you ask the doctor so and so? The doctor has to put the patient's well-being as their top priority without skimping on any treatment or medication or examination. It doesn't come out of their own pocket. It's, as far as I know, a CT scan is a very affordable examination that is, yeah, there is a risk of radiation, but what's the greater risk? Death. So a dentist will take your x-ray 10 times in a visit. Why not a child getting bumped on the head get a CT scan one time to make sure their brain is okay?
Yeah, and I was looking at this is such a great thing you're trying to pass. It's amazing how you don't know something's needed until something like this happens. I would have automatically assumed, this is what's mind-blowing, is you would automatically assume that when you're going to the doctor, they're giving you the best effort.
Right.
And then walking in with that assumption, not realizing you're walking in with a bit of a disadvantage because you're putting an expectation at that point that they may themselves not even know to meet.
Right.
And I thought when it comes to this, I saw a couple of things. I thought maybe I was kind of seeing if there may be any gaps and try to get a full law in effect. I got 6 things. No, wait, how many things here? 1, 2, 3, 5 things here. I don't know if they're included in your act just yet because I haven't really seen the whole official act. I'm sure you'll send it to me when it's fully completed. But I thought this was interesting. Discharge instructions and parent education. Studies show a lot of kids with head injuries go home with poor, inconsistent instructions, no clear list of danger signs, no guidance on activity limits, and parents confused about what's normal versus an emergency. So CDC and pediatric guidelines now stress that family education is a core part of care, written and verbal instructions about warning signs, what to expect over days, and when to come back. The petition focuses on diagnostics, then on making sure parents leave the ER with standardized, understandable written instruction they can actually follow. So that's something you already have in, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing: the same way it was common sense to you that this happened, this is the same way I actually believed that the doctor did that. And when people asked me what happened to her, I said, well, she went to the doctor and they didn't find anything.
And they got to be, but their mind has got to be. So you know what? Let me ask the question. When people hear that story, because even when I shared this story at work, the first thing people say is, why didn't they give her a CT scan? Why didn't they give her a scan? So how do we, who's just on the outside, know that would be an automatic thing to do?
Right.
And they did explain the injury, hit with a metal water bottle. You know, I mean, I guess they only look for signs, but since those signs may not always be seen, maybe we should go with the fact that, you know what, she was hit with a metal water bottle. You know, let's just go ahead and check her out because, you know, well, to
be on the side of caution.
Yeah, and then I have the last thing here, so Kimberly case sits at the intersection of 3 systems. There's a school environment that, according to students, normalized violence despite having written anti-bullying policies. There's a medical system that may have underreacted to pediatric head trauma at the first point of contact. And there is the question of accountability, making sure criminal, educational, and medical actors don't just point fingers at one another while families are left with grief and questions. If you could speak directly to 3 groups, school leaders, doctors, and parents, what is the one thing you'd want each of them to take away from what happened to Kimberly and from your experience as her uncle?
That's a very great question, because I believe that it doesn't necessarily that you talk to these people to get results. I believe you actually need to talk to congresspeople, senators, chief of staff, because this has to trickle from the head down. I believe that if I go to any school, you know, any principal of a school, and I tell them that, they will nod and agree with me, but what's going to happen next, I don't know. And how much power does a principal have? I believe this has to be done from whoever supervises within the government over the educational system. So if there was a pyramid, it has to be from the person at the top of a pyramid and trickle down all the way to, the janitor. The janitor should be a mandated protector of kids. And I've seen in the schools that I've worked, I've seen people who took on roles of like janitors, and they've stepped in to help kids in trouble. They didn't wait for school police to come and do it. They didn't wait for the dean to come and do it. And they would actually sometimes put their own job in jeopardize because they may not have a back from the school itself if they feel like they overstep and,
Sadly, I think we lose. I don't know. I think we lose a lot of people making that initial effort. The people that go above and beyond. Now, I think people are sometimes more concerned that when they go above and beyond liability and saving someone,
Right.
you know what? Worry about that later. I mean, like you said, okay, there's a likelihood she goes to the scan and can get too much radiation, but the probability right now is
Right.
she should check. But it's amazing how the excuse
Mhm.
becomes something that would have been in the child's better interest. But at the end of the day, don't use that now, because that's not a justification to me right now. That's an excuse because my child or my niece is no longer here.
Exactly. And the same way they gave us probability before putting her into brain surgery, they should have said the same thing. We're going to take her to CT scan. There's radiation involved in it, but if there's internal hemorrhaging, we will be able to detect it. So this outweighs the risk. The benefit outweighs the risk. And I want to bring up something that I just remembered. I think there's something called the Samaritan Act, which means that if a person steps in to help you, let's say you're choking at a restaurant and somebody knows the Heimlich maneuver and they come to rescue you, even if you got pain in your chest now because of the compression, you can't sue them because they saved your life. But that was a thing. There were people who did the Heimlich maneuver at restaurants getting sued because the person said, well, I have pain now, and he squeezed me. Doesn't matter that he saved his life. Now the Good Samaritan is up on trial to pay $500 to somebody who's just making a fast grab.
You would get that with people that you're trying to save their life, Heimlich maneuver or CPR, and you break a rib, and they sue you in your response. Law enforcement's covered with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because all that does is make people hesitant. But I always act on universal precaution. If I mean, I don't know. I'm not medical, but having seen medical for quite some time, you got to cross all T's. I mean, because in the end, you just don't know. And if someone says, you know what, they got hit with a metal thermal, whatever, a metal bottle. Right, then the thing I'm thinking as well, that's where it doesn't have injuries, but you know what? It still was a metal bottle. Let me go ahead and let's just check it anyway, because maybe you can't see it on the. I mean, listen, doctors should know the enemy within is always the worst. The stuff you don't see is killing you. You know. I got this video you said you put together.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to say before I play it?
I've done this as a in memoriam video of Kimberly with pictures of her and the family, and it's meant for the family, but the family was more than happy to share it with friends, the bigger circle, and everybody who's been supporting us. I initially wrote a poem in English, but because I wanted it to be a little bit more authentic, I had it translated to Spanish, and I put it in one of the music generating artificial intelligence services, because I'm not a composer and I can barely play half an instrument and a half. So it, with the capabilities of AI today, it came out way above my expectations, and it actually may be a little distressing for some people to hear it because of the intense emotionality of the song. I specifically picked Peruvian religious traditional music as the genre of music. So It's
Would it be
to
okay if I play it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I'm going to play it right now. And thank you for sharing it.
Thank you for playing it.
Honored.
Kimberly, ay Kimberly, ¿por qué te fuiste así? Ay, 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 Kimberly, mi niña vuelve a mí. Kimberly, ay, Kimberly, florcita del jardín, aunque el cielo te ha llevado, vives dentro de mí. Te fuiste como estrella que en la noche se apagó, una sombra cruel del mundo, tu inocencia lastimó. Dejaste risas claras, tu mirada de ilusión, tan brillante tu mente hermosa, tan inmenso el corazón. Kimberly, ay Kimberly, ¿por qué te fuiste así? Ay, 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 Kimberly, mi niña vuelve a mí. Kimberly, ay, Kimberly, florecita del jardín, aunque el cielo te ha llevado, vives dentro de mí. Y me duele no haber sido tu abrigo y tu protección. No corrí cuando llamaste, me desgarra el corazón. Perdóname, niña linda, si no supe comprender que necesitabas mis brazos para poderte defender. Kimberly, ay Kimberly, ¿por qué fuiste así? Ay, 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 niña vuelve a mí. Kimberly, ay Kimberly, pulsita del jardín, aunque el cielo te ha llevado, vives dentro de mí. Qué tragedia tan amarga que al perderte entendí. Cuánto amor nos regalas, cuánto amor había en ti. Hoy nos abrazamos fuerte como nunca fue ayer. Nos enseñaste a querernos aunque no te pueda ver. Es tan duro decirlo, pero nos das unidad. Nos haces más fuertes juntos aunque duele tu verdad. Para el cielo te canta, los ángeles te verán bailar, entre nubes y luceros nadie te hará llorar. Y mientras aquí lloramos, nos enseñaste a amar, en tu nombre nos unimos, nos volvemos a abrazar. Kimberly, ay Kimberly, palomita de mi mujer, siempre vivirás en mí. Ay, ay, nos da fuerza y unión. Cantando allá en el cielo, baila libre bajo el sol. Aquí abajo te prometemos vivir siempre con amor.
You know, it's she had a short life, but definitely filled with love. 5 lifetimes filled with love.
Right.
You know, she deserves. It's crazy how, you know what, now you live for her. The law will live for her, and as much as we would still want her here, now it's about the difference you can make through her.
Exactly. She was very loved by anybody who met her. Just immediately loved her, just because she was so pure and so innocent, and you could see that in her eyes. She had that was like the first feature you saw. Her eyes, big, innocent, inquisitive, and a little bit mischievous eyes. And
How do you? I mean, it's tough too, because you have to go through this battle and relive everything day. Each day, because you have a battle on your hands, but you also, as you're going through the battle, you are remembering all this every day. How is her? I mean, I don't say this to be a stupid question, but how is her mom? Was that her dad?
Yeah, so her mom is a little older than the dad, but she's been married twice. He's the second husband. The 2 younger girls, Kimberly and her older sister, are from the second husband, but he treats all of them like his children, as did my wife and I. We call them our adopted children.
Do you guys have kids at all, or?
We have one son. He's my stepson. He's from my wife's previous marriage. I treat him like my son. He's a man now. He's not a child anymore. Unfortunately, we were not lucky in that department. We tried to, do some expansion of the family, but
hey, Guy, you had family all around you, brother.
Absolutely.
You were there. They are your kids. I mean, screw labels. They are your kids. We have kids, but I have people claiming our kids. It's all about love.
Yeah, exactly.
If they feel loved, labels don't matter. And you can clearly see the love you had for her in that picture.
Thank you.
Hey, anything you would like to say in closing?
Just that I feel like it's not just my mission, but my wife's mission and Kimberly's parents' mission to make her life mean something, make a dent, because we don't want other people to go through what we're going through. It's just unfair. So whatever we can do, we'll do. A lot of people are supporting us. We are overwhelmed. Definitely the amount of love that we are seeing restores our faith in humanity, because with all the bullying and the bad stuff and the bad stuff that happened around the world, it doesn't necessarily just have this. You see people come around and build a community and support, and people from all walks of life and all types of political opinions. This touches their heart. This melts their heart. People that I don't know come to me, say, I've been crying all night just thinking about Kimberly, and they didn't even know her. So there's a power in here that needs to be used for building momentum, so we can see change for future generations, for our generation, for our elderly people, for veterans. It doesn't matter. We need to be responsible, We need to be transparent. We need to be forthcoming, and we need to have people's best interest at heart.
And it's unique as I think about the video. I'm going to watch that video again. I want to show my wife the video. This is a life that we would have not have known. I would not have met you. There'd be no reason for you to look at my YouTube channel at that point. But yet here we are.
I don't believe in coincidences, as I said. The Lord works in mysterious ways. I am a man of faith. I have a feeling that we're on a good road from here to make an impact, to make our community and maybe a larger community better. And
Yeah,
I'll die a happy man knowing that if I helped change somebody's life. We have a saying that anybody who saves a life saves the entire world.
it's a good saying to live by. It's I think when I developed the channel here, I used to do just pure correctional stuff, but then I wanted to cross into something bigger. I am getting closer to retirement, so I want to see where I could still create an impact. And I think, finding purpose, for those who they left too soon or they're just no longer around. How do we maintain their voice so they do have it's no longer a loss with meaning. It's a sacrifice for something bigger and better, and that's something you stamp their name on and say, if it wasn't for the sacrifice, this wouldn't be accomplished. And something that we would think happens every day turns out it's not happening. And Kimberly's legacy with you as the fuel, the family as the fuel, can create meaning. And maybe if we're lucky going forward, Kimberly's sacrifice won't be in vain.
Right. And I have to humbly say that this is not me. I've not taken this role because I wanted to. I was ushered into it, and I'm supported, and there are better people and smarter people than me standing behind me and helping me. And here,
well, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And you got my support, the support of the channel. I got my boy Russ Hamilton as well, who's going to be watching this. So if we could do something, I mean, I have a small little YouTube family, but they're committed. They care, and I'll tell you something. Smaller communities that are committed and care, don't mess with them.
Right.
Because
smaller communities are stronger.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. Sometimes you can have all these people screaming in different directions, or one person screaming the loudest from the top of a mountain. And I feel that's what this community does. So I want to thank you, Guy, coming on my channel, sharing such a personal story. I am humbled by it. I mean, I'm a small little YouTube channel, but you found the time to watch the video. You thought it gave respect to your family, which honors me and shows me that my stuff that I put in the content has value. So thank you for giving me value. And please, if you ever need anything, call me. My venue's yours. If there's an announcement you want to make, I'll share it to my community as well. And again, I wish you the best. If you need anything, the family, whatever, just call me. Okay, you have my number.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you for your sensitivity.
It means a lot to me, Guy. Thank you, brother.
Thanks.